Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission here is, well, pretty straightforward. We take source material articles, interviews, sometimes personal stories like today's lead.
And we just jump right in. We pull out the key insights, the things that really matter, so you get the essence quickly.
Exactly. It's about getting you genuinely informed on something specific without you having to wade through everything yourself.
Think of it as us doing the legwork, finding those crucial bits of knowledge. We want you to understand the why behind it all, not just the what. What can you actually take away?
And for this deep dive, we're looking at a really powerful source. It's a personal account from an interview detailing this intense survival story from a mountain climbing trip.
Yeah, it's quite the narrative. So our goal today is to walk through it step by step. Follow the journey from, well, excitement to emergency.
Pinpoint those moments where everything changed.
Understand the challenges, the real visceral challenges they faced, and then pull out the lessons about being prepared, about risk, about nature's power.
All through the lens of this one. Very personal experience. Okay, let's get into it. The story is about two hikers, Emma and Lily. Avid hikers, the source says, and they chose Mount Glimmer.
Right, and the why is important. Mount Glimmer has this reputation, stunning views, yes, but also some genuinely difficult routes.
So it wasn't just a walk in the park. They were looking for that challenge.
Exactly. Testing themselves. That seems to be the core motivation described.
And the day started, well, perfectly, it sounds like. Saturday morning, up early, loads of energy, weather's great, gear's all set.
Yeah, the source really paints that picture of optimism. You know that feeling. Early morning climb, crisp air, feeling strong. They were talking about the summit already.
High spirits, feeling on top of the world, even just on the initial trails, which were apparently well marked.
Pretty much a textbook perfect start. Everything going exactly to plan.
Which makes the shift even more dramatic, right? Because the account says the terrain started getting tougher as they climbed higher.
That's the key transition. They left the easier paths behind, and the mountains started, demanding more focus, more skill.
And that led them to this specific section the source calls Dragon's Ridge. Even the name.
Yeah, it sounds pretty serious. Described as a narrow ledge, really steep drops on either side. High consequence, definitely.
Exposed. And there was this interesting dynamic right there, wasn't there? Emma was leading.
Emma was out front, seemed more confident. But Lily, the account says, was hesitant, feeling that exposure, understandable.
But Emma encouraged her, told her she could do it, keep going.
And Lily did. She joined Emma out there on the ledge. That moment feels significant, pushing past the fear right onto that specific vulnerable spot.
They made it across that challenge, together on the ridge.
And that's when it happened, almost immediately after crossing, based on the account.
So what was the trigger? What did they hear or see?
They heard this loud crack, looked up, and there it was, a rock slide starting above them, not far off, like right there.
Oh, wow. Okay, so immediate danger, panic, the source says.
Total panic. Emma shouted for Lily to run. They just bolted, trying to get clear of the falling rocks. Pure instinct.
But it wasn't just dodging rocks, was it?
No, that's the terrifying part. The ground beneath them, the slope they were running on, it just gave way, collapsed.
So the mountain itself became unstable.
Exactly. It wasn't just debris falling on them. The very ground failed, sending them into this uncontrolled slide downwards.
It's horrifying. Just chaos, dirt, rocks flying, no control.
Complete loss of control. Tumbling down the slope, from carefully picking their way across a ridge to just being swept away. It really shows how fast things can change.
So how did they eventually stop falling?
They basically just tumbled and slid until they slammed into a rocky outcrop. That's what halted the fall, according to the source. Must have been a brutal stop.
I can only imagine. Shaken, disoriented, just trying to breathe, probably.
Right. And then the assessment. Checking for injuries.
And this is where the situation gets even worse.
Yeah.
Emma was okay. Mostly.
Mostly okay is how the account puts it. Banged up, probably bruised, but functional. But Lily, her ankle was clearly injured, swollen, bruised, visible damage.
Okay, that's the critical problem now. A serious injury miles from the trail.
And miles from help. Plus, the source notes the sun was starting to set. That realization must have been chilling.
Injury, isolation, and darkness coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nightmare scenario.
The account mentions that panic really setting in then. Understanding how truly bad their situation was, the clock was ticking loudly.
They had to get back, though. No other choice, really. Injured ankle or not.
It just becomes this immense test of will. How do you even move over rough terrain with an injury like that? Every single step must have been agony for Lily.
And the source describes that effort, right? Emma helping Lily.
Constantly supporting her, helping her walk, picking their way super carefully, checking a map on a phone, but the signal was weak.
Of course. Just when you need it most.
Exactly. Taking breaks, Emma pushing Lily to keep going through the pain. It
Yeah.
sounds like this incredibly slow, painful, desperate trek back towards the trail.
And mentally, what was going through their minds? Did the account touch on that?
Yeah, it described this mix. Fear, obviously, intense fear, but also this really strong determination to just keep moving forward.
But beneath that,
This profound sense of how fast everything went wrong, from feeling on top of the world to this, and how unprepared they felt for this specific situation. Not just a twisted ankle on a path, but a major incident off trail with injury.
the source called it a wake-up call.
A huge one about safety, about awareness, about how quickly nature can overwhelm your plans. Preparedness suddenly feels very, very real in a moment like that.
So eventually, after what must have seemed like forever, they made it.
They finally reach the main trail. You can just imagine the relief, utter exhaustion, pain, but back on a known path, out of that immediate danger zone where they fell.
Such a huge moment. But they still needed help, especially Lily.
Right. Thankfully, the account says they encountered other hikers on that main trail.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, and those hikers were able to get a call out, summon emergency services.
So Lily got proper medical attention for her ankle. They made it out.
They did, a truly harrowing experience, but they survived it. Which brings us really to the core of this deep dive. What was learned? What are the takeaways? The source is pretty clear on this.
Let's unpack those lessons. The first one feels fundamental. Respect the mountains, respect nature's unpredictability.
And this story just hammers that home, doesn't it? It wasn't a gradual weather change they ignored. It was sudden, violent, a rock slide, then the ground itself failing.
Right on their feet.
Yeah. It shows that respect isn't just admiring the view, it's acknowledging this immense power that operates on its own terms, something you can't fully predict or control, no matter how experienced you are.
Which flows right into the second lesson. Being prepared.
Yeah.
Truly prepared for emergencies.
And again, the specifics here matter. They had a phone map, great. But injured, off-trail, weak signal. It highlights the flaws. What if the phone broke in the fall? What if the battery died?
It makes you think beyond the basics.
Absolutely. It screams for redundancy, like a physical map and compass, and actually knowing how to use them properly, not just having them in the bag.
Communication.
Huge. A satellite messenger, a PLB, a personal locator beacon, something that works when phones don't. That could have changed things drastically.
And first aid, too. Presumably beyond just small cuts.
Definitely. Being able to manage a serious injury like Lily's ankle, immobilizing it, managing pain maybe for hours or even overnight if they hadn't made it back, maybe even needing emergency shelter. Preparedness isn't just gear. It's skills, knowledge, backup plans for when things go seriously wrong.
It really exposes that gap, doesn't it? Being prepared for the planned hike versus being prepared for the unplanned disaster.
That's a perfect way to put it. They were ready for the climb, the challenge they chose. They weren't fully ready for the survival scenario nature threw at them.
And the third takeaway mentioned, the human element.
Yeah, the bond of friendship. Support, you see it tested to the absolute limit during that agonizing descent.
Emma helping Lily, encouraging her.
Physically and mentally supporting her step by painful step. In a situation like that, relying on each other, pushing each other on, it's not just nice, it's critical. It's part of the survival mechanism itself. That shared struggle can forge something incredibly strong.
So when you boil it down, what does this specific story from Mount Glimmer really teach us?
Well, it takes those common pieces of advice, respect nature, be prepared, rely on each other, and it makes them intensely real. It shows you the stakes.
That's not just abstract anymore.
Not at all. It shows these aren't just rules, they're potential lifelines. The consequences of not heeding them become incredibly tangible through Emma and Lily's experience.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into this gripping survival account. We trace that journey from the initial excitement on Mount Glimmer, through the shock of the incident, the painful reality of the aftermath, and that grueling journey back to safety.
And we've pulled out those key lessons. Truly respecting nature's power and unpredictability. the absolute necessity of being prepared for specific emergencies, not just the expected challenges.
And the immense value of that human connection, of supporting each other when things fall apart. These are the things that made the difference here.
Absolutely. They're the threads that held things together.
So here's a final thought for you listening. This story shows just how quickly a planned adventure, something exciting, can turn into a desperate fight for survival when the truly unexpected hits. What does that tell us about how we balance seeking challenges, pushing our own limits, with building in resilience and preparedness? Not just on a mountain, maybe, but in any part of life where we venture into territory where we don't have full control. Something to think about as you navigate your own climbs, whatever form they take.